Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about underestimating work. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how can developers stop underestimating how long a task will take to complete? Add 50% to every estimation. That rule works really well. It's the only rule I've ever been able to say that that works. So if you think something's going to take a week, it's going to take 1.5 weeks, pretty much. If you say it's a day, it's a 1.5 days. Round that up to 2 days, always. Because frankly, you will never be able to overcome this problem unless you in some cases, if you are so in tune with the code that you're about to write that you literally left the code just yesterday and you're gonna add like a single line or whatever on top of that, you might be able to give a fairly accurate estimation. But most of the time you're always going to be off. That's why an estimation is an estimation, because you can't promise that this is the time it's going to take. You always in many cases underestimate how long something's going to take, simply because everything is easier when you don't get into the specifics of things. It can be as simple as you think it's going to be this simple thing that you're going to do, right? And all you have to do realize is that, oh, there was this one thing that was kind of undefined as to how it's going to work. Uh, and then you can't get a hold of your stakeholder, they can't make a decision, and all of a sudden the thing explodes into this really complicated mess. I'll give you an example from my own work. For a few years ago, we had a story estimation that came in where the stakeholder wanted to add a real life timer for a specific product, so that you could, as a customer, go and see when the product was going to be released. Seems simple enough. And we thought in our team that, well, that should be a very simple implementation. We looked at the design, it was basically just a text with that was counting down, and I thought, wow, like at this time I wasn't all that experienced, and I go, yeah, that should probably be like what, a few hours maybe. Let's say with testing and stuff like that, say a full day to do this thing, because it's just a timer, right? We really only need to get the date for like when the thing is going live, and then we take that now, like the current time within the local browser, and then we just create this text here there in JavaScript that just like changes at a certain time interval, like say every second, like something like that. That should be fairly straightforward, right? And all my coworkers kind of go in and say, yeah, it seems super simple. So we estimated it, and then we said, yeah, it's going to take a day. And then we start working, and we start like we leave that thing, and then when the time comes, when it's time to start working on it, someone points out something which made the whole thing horrible. But what about time zones? And I go, what do you mean? What about time zones? Well, like, do we need to account for, like, because the thing is, if you show the local time to the person in the browser, how will they know? Because this is an event type of thing. If we say that, oh yeah, the tickets are going to go live at that time, and then the event is at that time, are we going to show them like their like what time it is, their local time, or are we going to show them the time that from the point of like from the perspective of where the thing is happening, if that makes sense? So I mean, if you're in the US and you're going to come over to Sweden, which time do we show you? Are we going to show you the Swedish time, or are we going to show you like what are we going to do here? Uh, uh, well, and I kind of just go, yeah, let's talk to the PO. PO doesn't know. Stakeholder doesn't know. Can't get an answer to the thing. We start talking it through, and we go, okay, but what if how should we synchronize all of this? because the thing is, if we're just showing like a browser type of thing, like it's just ticking down in the browser like that, how are we certain that there's no like missynchronization? Like what precision level do we need? Do we need to be like really precise? Because then we might need to synchronize with the server, so that, because I mean technically you can at any point update the release time, and then the person who's sitting there might not actually see it. Like, how are we going to do that? Do we have to have like some type of WebSocket thing or whatever, so that you're always certain, sort of, that the time is correct? Because we've thought that this was going to be like this dumb thing that we were going to make, right? And like these conversations, they kept on going until we realized that we can't fucking build this. It's a really bad idea, because we don't actually know what what we want, what the user is going to expect. Like what should we build? And so this simple little thing, which basically, as we thought, was the simplest thing in the world, became this big massive problem that we just couldn't really estimate how we're going to do it, because we couldn't find a specification that actually made sense. Even in this scenario, I mean, it would have been adding 50% wouldn't have helped. So when I say that you should add like at least 50%, I'm basically just saying to you that for you to be able to accurately estimate work like this, you really need to talk everything through, and you need to have a very clear understanding of exactly how something is going to work. And that comes down to usually one part that your stakeholder knows exactly what they want, which is usually not the case, and one part that you make sure that you understand the specifics of what it is that they want. And that's where those soft skills I've been telling you about comes in, where you basically need to be so good at asking questions about details on how something's going to work, so that you can figure out whether or not your stakeholder actually has thought about all the corner cases, because you're going to have to think about the corner cases. That's the problem. It's very hard for humans to think in such painful detail about how something is going to work. But that's how programming works. You can't just generalize in programming. You need an if-else somewhere. There has to be a hard cutoff point. A decision has to be made. And without having each of these little details, you won't be able to actually build the experience that you're looking for. And you will be surprised, well, maybe you won't, but you will notice how often it is that you get these questions while you're working, and you realize that no one has actually told you how this tooltip is going to work, or how the dialogue is supposed to interact. Like, what's the animation going to look like? How long is it going to stay up? What should be in it? Like, you will, like, practically every single story, I will, without fail, you will at least once stop and go, I'm unsure. Wait, how is this supposed to work? I don't think we've talked about this. And then when you get to that point, the only thing you can do is write the question down and try to get a hold of somebody who knows. And since that will happen practically every single time, it's almost impossible for you to accurately estimate how long it's going to take, because just asking the question might open up an entire bag of worms, or can of worms, of other questions and follow-up issues and so forth that you didn't even think about. So what I want you to take away from this is that do your best to just try to make an accurate estimate. I can tell you that it gets easier the more experience you have, because usually you start to get a very good gut feeling. If that gut feeling gets developed on you, it's probably going to be the best thing. A senior developer's gut feeling is probably the most accurate tool of measurement there is in the universe for how long something's going to take. It's more accurate than anything I've ever seen before. And the problem is basically that there's always going to be an unknown. There's always going to be some oversight in the specification that you can't foresee, and it's impossible to perfectly foresee everything and every question. Most of the time you will get better at this by just asking a lot of questions on details. How is that supposed to work? How is that supposed to work? Do you have artboards? Okay, here is the UI. Like if I click there, what happens? If there's an input, okay, what happens if I put in that? What happens if it's an error? Like what's the negative state? This is just showing the positive state. What happens if something fails? Like all these questions and these dialogues and all these conversations is the thing that's going to give you the best estimate possible. And whenever you think that you sort of know how long it's going to take, add 50%. That's a very good rule of thumb. I promise you. Have a great day.